Thanks very much for having me today, and I really appreciate it. I've been fortunate. I've been serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee since 2010, and to see the innovation that we've seen in the entrepreneurship across this industry has been spectacular. But one of the things I've always said about being on the Energy and Commerce Committee is this. When you sit up on that dais, you're looking over the horizon 5 to 10 years, and so we want to make sure that we get the legislation right, because we don't want to do anything out there, especially for me when thinking about this, for anybody out there that wants to move. A lot of times when I talk to the industry, they're way past us. And what the last thing we want to do is pass legislation where you're looking in the rearview mirror or the end of the car. You got to look over the horizon. So it's absolutely important that we always make sure that we do that. And so it's expected that, for us, that as we go forward, to always, for me, is to have an open door policy. So I need to have the industry and all of you contacting me or come to my office. I've got an open door policy, so please come in. You got ideas, suggestions, you got problems, let us know what they are, because again, that's where we are. Because as I mentioned, we've seen transformational change in the telecommunications and tech industry. And it's these new technologies, and it's, again, the things that are going to affect things for decades to come. And for many in this room, like you, I've been engaging in the telecom policy in Congress for years. But we can't quit. We got to keep moving forward. But in the last few years, I've felt like we have come to a head on many issues that are at the top of the mind for all Americans, which is not always the case with these issues. The role that social media plays in our lives and the lives of our children. How we view media content has changed drastically towards on-demand streaming services. We face national security threats from unsecure equipment, and also through a little app called TikTok. Artificial intelligence regulation, what the government role should be, if any, in ensuring there is affordable internet option. And finally, a feeling that we could connect all Americans to reliable broadband so long as the government doesn't put too many roadblocks in the provider's way. And in that, I always say this, as we look, and I'll mention this a little bit later, but you think about the BEAD program out there, the one thing I've said consistently from day one, that the federal government should not be out there picking winners and losers. It should be what's best for the community, best for the area, and what's going to be best to get that out there. So I always want to make sure that we're always thinking about that it's not, because I always say this, if the federal government starts picking winners and losers, I'm going to tell you, we're all going to lose. So it's very relevant in our conversation today that we're seeing spectrum policy develop and the fracturing on the world stage. And as you know, there are numerous hurdles to connecting every American household. Unfortunately, a problem that requires a dedicated and efficient response spurred an overwhelming and scattered federal funding response. And talking to my fellow members, it's hard for them to believe and understand that we have over 130 different broadband programs spread across 15 departments and agencies that's administering billions of dollars. And so the other areas that I'm always concerned with is when you're thinking about this is that you don't want to have the overbuilding out there. You want to make sure that, again, I worked from day one making sure that we had the broadband maps out there, especially when then the Chairman Pai asked us all to look at maps, and I said the maps are wrong. And because again, before you start spending dollars out there, you really want to make sure you know where the dollars need to be spent. So again, it's my priority to make sure that these agencies and departments are being administered effectively so that the programs can do the best amount of money for the best amount of bang for the buck, and that we're connecting all the Americans out there. And when you think about COVID, and first of all, I want to thank everybody in this room. Because again, interesting enough, about 6 weeks before COVID struck, I was in meetings because the Energy and Commerce Committee has the broadest jurisdiction of any committee in Congress. So we think of the telecommunications side, the healthcare side, the energy side. But I remember being in a meeting hearing this, that telehealth would never work. And 6 weeks into COVID on the other side of this, I was on about a 40-person Zoom call across the country. And this is what I was hearing. If we didn't have telehealth, we'd be sunk. But the problem out there is how are you going to get the telehealth out there? And how are you going to move it? I know that when Chairman Pai was out in my district, we were at one of our major hospitals and they had a stroke unit. And they were showing us all the things that this stroke unit could do, how it could save lives so quickly. But I said, I don't want to be the one to throw the wrench in this, but I got to ask you the question, how far can this ambulance go out? And they said, only to this point, because at that point, there's no more connection. So if you live on this side, you have a very good chance of being saved. On this side, well, maybe not so good. So it's important that, again, that for what you've all done, especially during COVID, that kept things moving. And this is why I think that we always have to listen to on the private sector side. Before pre-COVID, the number that was always being touted out there was about $1.7 trillion being invested on the private sector. And today it's around 2.2 to 2.3 trillion. But just think what happened here in the United States when speeds went up and costs went down. Look what happened in Europe. Costs went up and speeds went down. So it's important that we think about those things, especially when we think about on the government side, that we've got to make sure that we're getting these things done right and that the right regulations are out there. And when we think about with the what's happened again with on the hospital sides, I know I go when I'm home. I'm going through hospitals and across my community, thousands of meetings across my district in Northern Ohio. But I was recently in a hospital, small community hospital, that they're serving their community on the mental health side because of using telehealth. And a lot of these people that they're serving couldn't get to the hospital because there's no transportation, or they don't feel right coming to the hospital and actually seeing somebody face to face. But they will talk to somebody when they're on a telehealth visit. And so those people are being served. But then you also think about what happened during COVID with children. A lot of school districts sent their kids home with what? A laptop, but it was a great idea, one small little problem. They didn't have internet. So you think about that, and also in my area, because I have 86,000 manufacturing jobs, the largest in the state of Ohio. I also have the largest farm income producing district, and so I've worked with making sure we get precision agriculture across our country, because we want to make sure that farmers can be profitable in what they do. So I want to make sure as we move forward that we always think about this, and we always have to have one thing as we move forward, is that oversight. And so we're going to be having oversight of the FCC, and also the FCC's announcement of net neutrality. And I don't think that we need more government out there. I think it's absolutely wrong. I think we saw what the vote was, 3-2. But we go back to 2017, we saw that roll off. I told my staff, not only in Washington, but also in my 3-district offices, I said, listen, I want tomorrow morning, I want you to tell me how many calls we're getting of people that have lost their internet because all of a sudden the FCC didn't have net neutrality. And you know how many calls I got? 0. So it just shows what the private sector was able to do, and we were able to get done. So this is one of the issues that's a great concern to me when we're talking about net neutrality. But when it comes to the wireless connectivity, nothing's out there that would be possible without spectrum. It fuels our economy, enables our communication services, empowers important federal missions, and properly managing our nation's spectrum resources is an important responsibility. And so, as I said, we have to have a forward-looking, when we're thinking about spectrum policy in this country and spectrum management. And what we all know, one thing, we need more spectrum, not less. And so we have to make sure that we're working toward that goal of getting it. And our problem is, as you just heard from the previous speaker brought this up, think about communist China. They just move forward. They're not worried about going through different agencies or departments. They just go. And I'm not saying that we want to advocate what they do, but we got to move things faster as we go forward, especially when it comes to making sure that on our spectrum management side, because we've got to compete with the rest of the world, because the United States should be leading and never following. And the fact that talking about spectrum is another problem that we've had. We don't have spectrum authority. For no authority out there for the auction. And to go, almost into a second-year cycle without spectrum authority to have these auctions is absolutely unbelievable that we're not having this happen. Because up to this point, we've raised about $233 billion for the U.S. Treasury. And if you ever, in one of my earlier committee assignments here in the House, I served on the Budget Committee. And one of the things I always look at is look at all the numbers and where the money's coming in from. But if you look at the CBO scores that we're seeing today, and you go to see where it says under Spectrum Auction Authority, what's out there, we're seeing a 0. And so that's unacceptable, and we've got to move forward because, again, we have to make sure that we have that spectrum authority because more industries rely on it, and that's how we're going to generate billions of dollars, and not trillions of dollars, coming into the U.S. economy every year. And the United States should be identifying more spectrum with a spectrum pipeline. We should also be fast tracking the spectrum that we know is out there, such as in the lower 3 gigahertz. So, we want to make sure that we're building that trust out there, that we can move forward. And I'm confident we're going to get it done, because we have to get it done. And it's one of my pieces of legislation with the NTIA Reauthorization Act that I led with the ranking member from California, Doris Matsui, is going to help in that effort. And we're working to get the bill up to come for a vote in the full House very soon. Because, when you think about, we haven't reauthorized NTIA since 1993. And as I mentioned on the 5G, it's important that we get it right for our community, especially our rural communities. Again, when I think about what we can do out in our rural areas, not only from education and healthcare, and making sure businesses can thrive out there and people can communicate with loved ones, but again, on the precision agriculture side that I've worked with for years, making sure on the rural side that we can get our 5G connectivity, because that's where it's going to be. This past April, I did send a letter to the FCC urging that they leverage BEAD-funded fiber and fixed wireless projects to make the 5G fund go further and connect more Americans. And otherwise, if we cannot allow rural Americans to be left behind. There are countless benefits, and you know what they are, that when you think about what can happen out there when the United States leads, our innovation leadership, our global competitiveness, that smart spectrum policy provides. And again, I look forward to working with all of you. But again, I can't do my job unless I hear from you. So please, anytime, contact my office. I've got great office staff. We have great committee staff. But also, anytime you want to come and sit down with me to discuss these issues, please feel free to do so, because again, the best legislation that we can craft comes from the people that are on the front lines. And we don't want to just think that it's going to be generated by Congress, because I tell you, a lot of times you're going to run into problems there. So thank you very much for having me today, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks very much.